Hello everyone, I hope now it's better. Sorry. I'm Piotr from YieldPlanet, and I'm gonna try to actually touch on the topics that are somehow connected with what that Anne-Marie has mentioned. So breaking silos and reducing the distribution costs, basically the automation, how the technology can help you generate more revenue. Yep. Works. Okay. I hope some of you already know YieldPlanet, because I know there are some users of our channel manager at least signed up. I'm sorry, I still don't recognize all the faces, but just a quick introduction about YieldPlanet. We are basically experts in distribution. That is kind of confirmed by the acquisition that happened in 2022. We got bought by the PMS that comes from a completely different segment, short-term rentals, and they bought us exactly for the distribution piece. That's kind of a proof that, okay, we know a thing or two about the distribution. But we also have a slightly different product that's focused on pricing and how it's different, how are we unique about it is that we don't necessarily believe that you should work with the silos of pricing and distribution. So we're combining that in one tool, and we're mostly working with individual properties or hotel chains where, for example, you can find just one or two revenue managers running 20 or even more hotels. Yep, so enough of me and YieldPlanet. I wanted to start with possibly a little bit silly a question about your tech stack. I wanted to ask how many of you, assuming that most of you are working at hotels, are using PMS. I know it's a silly question. Please raise your hand so that we can compare. Okay, obvious. Yeah. Now, who of you is using any kind of a channel manager or distribution platform? Okay, more or less the same. How about the pricing tool? Oh, yeah, some a little bit less hands. Guest communication tools, even less. Okay, automated kiosks for check-in. Just four hands up. Yeah, so we're going down with the number. Yeah. Why I'm asking this? Because usually with every product, there's some kind of a so-called product adoption curve. So it's not that one day all the hoteliers wake up and they start using certain technology. Of course, we need time to choose wisely, and also let the providers to build their stuff. That's the data. These are numbers from 2019. That's probably the latest update that Skift was able to deliver in terms of the adoption of any kind of revenue management/pricing tools among hotels. And at least at that time, it says that 10% of hotels and 50% of rooms were kind of using any pricing tools. What does that mean for you? I mean, I know there are some franchise chains here as well, but that mostly means that those big international players, they're leading the game. These are big hotels that usually have more power to invest in the technologies. But it doesn't mean that you should not also think about it. That's actually, it's also another data from the November 22, also Skift, that shows that actually the pricing tools, these are the tools that are mostly invested in among the hotels and among the hotel inventory. Okay. Okay. So as some people said quite a long time ago, the best time to plant a tree, it was already 10 years ago. But the next best time to plant the tree, it's today. So it basically means that, okay, especially for those who has not raised the hand when I asked about the pricing tools, it's always a good time to think about it. And especially because the technology can really help you. Now, possibly last question. Do we have any pilots here that might know the... okay, perfect. Finally someone. Cool. So, I mean, you hopefully you confirm that revenue management could be as difficult as flying a plane. There's so many factors that you need to consider, so many like screens you need to watch, analyze, and also make very complex decisions, sometimes very, very fast. And also the responsibility is also high. So, and also usually, I mean, it's not that automated as here, but it's usually also quite a tedious job. So that's more or less how you can perceive the job of a revenue manager, that is observing different kind of tools and trying to make a decision and land safely with the whole team. Now, that's why the reality that we usually realize when we're talking with our clients and partners is that some hotels are still using some flat pricing, and they think that the seasonal pricing, so low season one price, high season another price, it is already some kind of dynamic pricing. But let me say it out loud, it's not. They're using some bars as or rack rates, as Anne-Marie mentioned. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a good way to start something, but also it's a simplification. They usually also don't control their inventory. They like keep everything open. They kind of try to ignore the fact that internet has came, that everyone can book their hotels through very different channels, and they don't even try to control that. So airlines are usually known for being kind of a leaders of implementing technologies for various reasons. And one of the technology that is actually quite interesting there is the one that you can, hopefully you can confirm, usually finds here around in the middle. It's called an autopilot. An autopilot is cool because like whenever things are more or less within the predicted range, it can even land the plane safely without a human touch. But of course, pilots are still very, very, very important, because when things are like going really bad, the weather changes, or maybe the plane has like malfunctions, they need to take over and they need to act. So how is that relevant to revenue management? Again, this technology, so autopilot implemented in revenue management, can help you to focus more on the other tasks and force you only to react on very important strategic moments. What does that bring to you? First of all, it brings time savings. So hopefully, if you have like the most tedious tasks automated, you can focus on some more important tasks, strategic thinking, or maybe spending time with your beloved ones. And as the old revenue management saying says, I mean, it's a very, very like often used quote. I even have to read it. It's the right product, right customer, right price, right channel, right time. But usually the thing is that if you even have the right price, the most perfect price, it's even better actually not to sell at that price. Because imagine the state date that actually you know that there will be a crazy high demand. There's some kind of event in the city that you want to optimize the revenue for. So sometimes it's actually even better to close certain channels. There's actually a very simple example of a sequence of what you can do with for example, the most commissionable channel that actually fits with the background. Long time before the arrival, you can close the channel. If you have already some kind of occupancy saved, so your revenue is set, you save for that stay date. If we come closer to the arrival, just 2 weeks before, and actually we didn't fill up the hotel, maybe we can reopen, because that will help us to get more bookings. On the day of arrival, why shouldn't we close the channel in order to save the rooms for walk-ins or direct bookings? But at the same day, in the afternoon, we probably should reopen the channel, because the chances are much higher that a busy businesswoman coming late into the city will actually find your hotel on a big OTA. So by doing this kind of sequence, I mean, the concept is obviously simple, but by doing this kind of sequences, implementing most of the sequences, what we usually see that our clients are saving most of time. They're saving a lot of commission and actually growing their revenue thanks to the sequences that are carefully executed every single time that is required. Another thing is a flexible inventory. So especially if you have multiple room types, if one room type is already sold out and there's a potential guest looking for that room, your website probably will say, I'm sorry, we're sold out, like we cannot really accommodate you. And if that is about just one stay, maybe it's not a big problem. But if that was about just one night kind of breaking the, let's say, 2-week long stay, that kind of hurts, doesn't it? So by using the flexible availability and like kind of automated updates, you can automatically always say yes to a potential customer. So you don't have to remember that, okay, you need to teach the front desk or maybe like change it manually to allow overbookings. The flexible availability actually helps that to break also the silos between the rooms actually. And let me also share one other story about the very interesting strategy for an event. These are the results from a real hotel from Geneva. Actually, not necessarily Geneva, but like just close to the city. And this is about the event that happens, I think, every second year in that region, and it's crazy. These are probably the biggest fairs in Europe that you can find. And what is also special about this event that as much as usually hotels have the distribution open for 1 year ahead, for this thing, they have to open it like 3 years ahead because the people already want to book. So the results that we're seeing here, this is a comparison between like kind of like a comparable days from a week before and days of the event. What we can see here is that, okay, maybe some bookings were made manually before, but basically the idea was to completely close sales only up until 3 weeks before arrival. What that meant that all the other competitors got sold out, and that hotel opened the sales just 3 weeks before arrival, obviously with much more aggressive pricing. The results, first of all, they ended up on a more or less similar occupancy level, but because of the pricing, also the revenue results went very, very good. And I think they kind of speak for themselves that, okay, it actually, this risk really paid off. And the very cool thing is that the guy who invented that strategy, most of that time, he was just laying on a beach, having that all automated. So yeah, I wanted to encourage you to think about automating your job and playing not only with the pricing, but also in the availability. And if you wish to talk a little bit more about, okay, what else can you implement at your specific property, I'm happy to share a coffee. Thank you.